Hey folks, welcome back. Joel Rather here, Hunt, Hike, Harvest Outdoors. Pretty excited today. We have a fun podcast, someone that I was fortunate enough to meet through a mutual friend of ours, Jared Newman with Hunt League. We were on a panel together for the Outdoorsman of the Year, which was an interesting one. Maybe we'll talk about that. I actually would like to get some more perspective on this, but we have Aaron Stonehocker on today. He works with and for Tactacam. Many of you probably have heard of or know Tactacam. They are the #1 consumer rated trail cam on the market today, and they are intending to keep it that way. And so, Aaron, good to catch up with you. I know we talked a little bit beforehand, but how are you today?
I'm doing well, man. Excited to be here and talk all things hunting, hiking, harvesting, you name it.
Yeah. Well, you guys play into that quite a bit for a lot of hunters. I think it's important that most of us, as I said, are familiar with trail cams and things like that. But I want to kind of give you an opportunity. Number one, tell us about Tactacam. I want to talk as we kind of go here. I'll ask a little bit about kind of your background history, how you wound up at Tactacam, that type of thing. But tell our massive followers and that type of stuff, more about what you do and what Tactacam is, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, Tactacam started basically a decade ago, about 10 years I think coming up here on the nose. And we started as a way to share your hunt with your friends and family. So our founder, Ben Stern, he's a tech guy. He has a photography background, and he was sitting in the tree stand, diehard whitetail hunter out of Wisconsin. And his grandpa's sitting at home, and he's getting older, and he's trying to figure out, the whole camaraderie piece of deer camp is really what he was thinking about, and how you can go home and share, every time we get back to camp, we share these stories with each other, but like, how can I show them what happened in the tree stand? Or when I'm saying, hey, man, it was this close, but didn't happen. Like, where's the proof in the pudding, right? So he started dabbling around, and he had some buddies from school that, had various backgrounds in the tech world. Had a guy in some camera manufacturing space that he knew. And long story short, he took some duct tape, a camera lens, a microchip, and a watch battery and made the very first ever Tactacam. And it's still today at the headquarters, the very first one. Kind of grew from there. So yeah,
that's awesome.
He wanted a way to share his hunt with his friends and family. And then that grew into, hey man, I think we can make this happen for the, the world at the end of the day. Right. So yeah. We did the POV thing for a while. And like you said, now there was a time when I asked our CEO, why don't we ever make a trail camera? And his exact words were, I have zero interest in ever getting into that space. And then fast forward 3 years, we're through 5 years now, we're the #1 cellular trail camera company on the market. And
right.
We're not looking back either. So things change. But yeah, so POV cameras and just finding ways for hunters to stay on the hunt all the time now with the trail cameras and share your hunt from the tree stand, from your gun or your bow with the POV cameras.
Yeah. And I think we talked a little bit about this prior to the show. I think that the POV, the point of view cameras and things like that, it probably was, very fortuitous when you think about just the age of how we now see, the YouTube and the Instagram and social media world and all these things, where there was such an explosion in the last 8 years or so with people that I think, myself included, like grew up watching, it's like the Babe Winkelmans and, the Jim Shockeys and all this stuff. And like, holy cow, it's like so cool to watch a hunting show, right? Like something that I love to do. And then, they're out on these, magnificent hunts and those types of things. And then we saw the injection of the social media world. And now it's like everyone's sharing everything. And you had these guys and girls that started saying like, well, we could film a hunt, right? Like we could figure out how to do this stuff. And, you talk about, the founder who was essentially one of those people, and it's now become such a digestible way where it's so easy to follow so many people that are doing these things. And it's kind of a progression, I think, a lot in some people's minds, where it's like, some of us want to just like share it with our buddies. Some of us just like it for the memories, all those types of things. Like I know the first couple elk hunts that I went on 20 years ago or so, like I brought just a camera and I would take pictures and then I'd get done. And this was like back in the, the slideshow days where I would like, throw like some music in the background, and it was just like picture,
Yeah.
picture, picture. And then I'd like burn it onto a CD and share it with my buddies. So that was like, cause you want to remember all that stuff. And now like it's come like crazy far. So like, you guys have your Ultra HD point of view cameras where it's like, man, those are number one. Like you're talking about high definition, super high quality. Talk a little bit about that, because I know I kind of pinged you with that beforehand, because I think it's really interesting. You guys are really kind of all in on the cameras side of things, and like I know if people go to your website, they're also like, where did these things go, right? Like, but they're still very popular.
Yeah, man, for sure. It seems crazy. And I've been around since the 2.0 days of our POV cameras, and yeah, about a little over a year ago now, or I don't know, it's probably been 6 months. I feel like time flies and melts together when you're burning and turning the industry. But anyway, not too long ago, we got the news internally that, hey, we're at a point now with the cellular camera opportunity with Reveal and the monster in the market that it's become, and the future of it is never too far away. So we always got to be forward thinking to maintain, the next best thing status that we have. And so we had to kind of make the tough decision to say, hey, the POV thing's been, who we are, but we've got to put that on the back burner now and let it switch places to Reveal, and the Reveal's taken over the front seat. So we're still supporting the brand. It's still in the background on the POV side. You'll find it at dealers, retailers, big box, mom and pop stores still have access to it. You'll find it on Amazon. But we, unfortunately, we're not pushing it like we used to internally, but it's to make sure that we're, as a technology company, at the end of the day, putting our best foot forward and putting all of our resources into what's the future for hunters. And we've got, I feel like I'm saying this all the time, and I'm sure a lot of companies do, but man, everything you see that Tactacam's doing, there's 15 things behind the scenes that you wouldn't even think that they would ever get into. Some of them are launching this year, which is cool. We're getting into a whole new world, which it seems strange that we're getting into, and that's about as far as I'll say about that. But we're getting into some new features that we have because Reveal's made it a possibility for us to expand into some whole new areas that we never thought we would ever be. Right. And in the POV side, this isn't a knock to it, but at the end of the day, it'll always, kind of just be a video camera, and that's about the extent of it. So when we got to the POV stage with the 6.0, like you said, I mean, you're talking 4K, it's got outstanding image stabilization. Now you shoot a bow with it and you don't even see the bow go off. It's crazy how stable those things are now. They're shockproof, waterproof. It's got a touch screen on it. Like, we got it to about the point where it's like, okay, how much more can you do with a 4-inch video camera, right? That weighs 3 ounces.
With a thing that's about this big, right?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. And like our Reveal, everything's app development related, right? The cameras, again, you're only going to be able to do so much with a trail camera, but like the future is really in the app developments and how you can make that customer experience, like just integrate that person into what they're doing and helping them share it with their friends and family. And the apps, on the Tactacam side, those will, hopefully be developed here in the near future too, to just keep those functions and stuff kind of growing as well. But yeah, it's been a weird transition for guys that have been around a while like I have. But, at the end of the day, again, it's the technology first company. So where the technology is growing is where we got to focus the effort.
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's even part of it too, kind of as you were talking there, where in my mind, it's kind of, is it the chicken or the egg, right? Which is like, in this case, it started with the POV stuff and you've kind of molded, and we're going to get to talking a lot more about the Reveal line and all those things. But the reality of it is this time of year, especially, right? Like, guys are putting in the work to get out and try and, scout and find areas and see where there's things moving and where am I going to kind of like focus my efforts. And that realistically starts with getting out, doing your scouting, putting up your cams, doing all these things that allow you the ability to then narrow down, where am I actually going to hunt, right? Like in my case, we're talking about Western hunting, right? But even your whitetail hunters and things like that, where if you have properties, if you just be like, I'll just throw a stand in that tree right there and see what happens, right? Like you and I talked about this beforehand. It's like, you could sit there for days on end. And if that's not in the right place, guess what? Like you just wasted a whole season, right? And so if you buy the POV camera, and put your tree stand in the wrong place, guess what? Like you got nothing to film and there's nothing to see here, right?
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
brutal.
almost kind of like there is a really interesting kind of marriage between those two, which is like we need to do the homework first, which includes the reveal line and all these things that are going to help us. So there's something potentially worth filming later if that's
Yeah,
what you choose to do. And obviously you don't, filming a hunt doesn't make a hunt successful, but it is very popular nowadays. And I think that it's something that we are horrible at, and we continue to try to do, for ourselves as well as with the brand. I know, like talking with Jared hunted with us last year, and we learned a lot from him too, where I'm like, be a good guy to maybe to watch and learn from a little bit better, so that you can figure out how to do this stuff. He's only done it for a living.
yeah. I mean, that's no big deal.
Right.
And that's
Right.
that's the coolest part about Tactacam. The POV cameras. That's what got me into it. I was a guy that I still write for the Iowa Sportsman magazine. That's ultimately how I found out about Tactacam when they first started advertising there. But I had the big mini DV VHS camcorder, the camera arm, hiking up a tree stand, doing that whole thing, and
Right.
you find Tactacam, and dude, I got my first hunt on Tactacam. I shot a doe in Iowa, and I've never looked back, because ultimately what happened is like where that camera like forced me to have to stop, because I wasn't, and I'm not a guy that's going to miss harvesting and filling a tag for the camera, right? Like I've never been that guy,
Yeah.
but where the doe locked onto me because I was moving around up in the tree, and my Tactacam was on my bow. It was fired up and rolling. The footage is like this camera stops and there's a weird pause, and then all of a sudden the Tactacam footage takes over, and I was able to make it happen. And I
That's
just like
awesome.
never looked back. And now we've got we have a spotting scope camera, the Spotter LR. We've got an FTS mount that lets you film through your rifle scope. We've got
Yeah.
wide angle cameras, the whole nine. And my kind of my culmination of the entire technology package with the POV side was on my very first buck antelope that I harvested in Montana. I had the FTS going. I had a wide angle mounted to my scope facing back at me. I had the Spotter LR rolling on my spotting scope, and I had a group of 3 bucks. And I got the spotting scope set up, got all 3 bucks in film or in frame, and then the rest was just me crawling around with my pack, waiting for that perfect opportunity to get the shot. I had a total of 1 pound, I think, with the Spotter LR, total of 1 pound of camera gear with me, out west, spot and stock, doing the thing out in the wide open space. And I had 3 cameras, no need for a camera guy. And I got 3 different angles of that hunt, getting my first antelope. And it doesn't get any.
That's amazing to me, right? Because I know we've been around and talked to, like, if you go back like a long time back in our podcast series, we had Garrett and Justin on with Top Priority, which is now a little bit different in up in Idaho, and they do some amazing filming of hunts, and we talked to them about it, and I'm like, how much stuff do you guys bring, right? And they're like, by the time you figure in the tripods, and we got this camera and we got this many batteries and yada yada, he's like, it's probably like 40-50 pounds of all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my pack already weighs like 35, depending if we're day hunting or if we're actually like bivvying in or whatever. I'm like, it could be 30-50-ish pounds anyway, without any of that stuff, right? And so that's been something too, where I think it becomes a rate limiting piece. And like the example that you just gave, like in the back of my mind, I'm going like, man, that sounds amazing. Not only do you have like 3 cameras, but you have 3 cameras that only weighed like 2 some pounds or whatever. I'm like, sign me up for that, because I've lugged around tripods. I've lugged around, like, I actually have one of our cameras that I bring that, we can do high quality, work with in terms of changing all the apertures and all these other things, right? That I'm horrible at understanding. And like, I would carry that camera on like a table mount with a spider little tripod. And I would put that between my chest harness and let it sit right here, because I'm like, I have to have it ready, and I need to be able to get it out. And then if I need to, I can snake it onto a tree if we get into a static environment or whatever. And last year, before last season, I sold it. I was like, you know what? Like, if that's what it requires of me, I'm like, this is brutal. Like, yes, I want to capture it. And now even when you look at these, right, it's like even the quality within what you can do with a cell phone. But I'm like, if I have something like the Tactacam where I can have those things literally readily available, mounted, ready to rock, how much I can capture in that moment and throughout, even the course of a hunt is phenomenal. And not have 30 pounds extra on my back and, things bulking all over me to where it's like weighing me down and everything else you got to account for. And then even just, I think there's a big component to that in terms, like I was always worried about like breaking something if I freaking take a fall or all these other things that like also play into it, where you're like, holy cow, you got thousands of dollars worth of gear here you can bust up real quick. And
Oh
you
yeah.
guys, it solves that problem too, right? Where it's just
Yep.
like so much easier, so much more sleek, so much more kind of durable, and you're not sacrificing any of the quality, which is huge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the other thing, you think about when you kind of mentioned the DSLR setup is,
Yeah.
I've got one too, and honestly, like as soon as I had Tactacam rocking with a multi-camera system, and it's literally like the best part in my mind about it, like I said, my multi-camera setup, I hit one button on my remote, all the cameras fire up at the same time and start recording. So it's all time synced and stuff. But then you get the audio piece as well, which is a lot of times why guys, I went on a hunt with the guys from Sons of Fall, and that's really the first hunt that I've been on where I got to see like someone that does the true production level work,
Yeah.
versus, me being like a solo hunter and lightweight and everything like that. But even like the mics and everything that they would carry. And then we were sitting back in their camper one night, like reviewing footage, and my 5.0 wide was capturing our conversations just as well. 4K, it's on a little bendable mount, like you said, that I just run right through my bino harness, like you said, so it's there.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm carrying 6 ounces of stuff, and they're turning on mics and worrying about batteries, and you got the big, microphone on there that can't get wet. You got to be worried
Yep.
about that. And I'm
Yep.
just like, okay. And I'll be interested. They're putting that episode together, but as much footage that I captured with that 5.0 wide and the 4K that it films in, I'll be interested to see how much of that gets used in the side by side with everything else. Just because at the end of the day, it's a 4K camera, full audio. It's got 8 times zoom if you need it. I'll
Wow.
be interested to see how they integrate it in.
Yeah. That's super cool. Well, yeah, man, it gets me fired up like talking about that stuff, because I'm like, I'm and I did it intentionally, right? Like I kind of like offloaded all that. I actually sold it to someone who is like in the photography world, and so I was like, oh cool, it's going to go to someone who's like really going to get good use out of this thing, and obviously still had value. I had multiple lenses and all these other things, and I'm like, but man, I'm underutilizing this thing based on what we're using it for, and so it's like I did that with the intent to kind of like revamp how we go about that stuff. So it's like it gets me fired up to talk to you and see like what the capability is, and how much that fits like what I want to be able to accomplish, right, in such a
Oh yeah.
like more concise way, with like, again, without sacrificing all the things that you think you might, without having to carry all these just obnoxious amount of other things.
Yeah, it does. It weighs you down, and it's just, I mean, I remember when I first started carrying a spotting scope, like just that for the Western hunting stuff or bear hunting and stuff,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how much weight that added to my pack. And
Yeah.
it was weird. Seems weird. I got up to the top of the mountain one time with my hunting partner, and I was like, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm carrying around in here, but it just feels like so much heavier than I'm used to. And he goes, well, you bought that damn spotting scope. He said
Yep.
and I'm like, really? Because when you're playing with it on the tripod and stuff, it doesn't seem that bad, but you throw it
Right.
in your pack and you absolutely feel it, but
For
then,
sure.
take that and multiply it times everything else. But when you can take I filmed 2 different buddies now. One guy, his first antelope hunt, one of my military buddies in Montana, and can't remember who else the other guy was, but a deer. And you talk about having like a cameraman situation. I just went out with them to be on the hunt with them more than anything. I'm like, dude, do you mind if I film? I've got my 3-ounce 5.0 wide. I'm just walking around kind of doing this, capturing the little, moments of us hiking and crawling and that kind of stuff. But then
Right.
I put the tripod and the spotting scope. Now I got my spotting scope turns into a 4K camera, but I don't have to use my phone or worry about burning my phone battery up.
Yeah.
When I want it to be ready when I need it for Onyx or shot calculation software, things like that. And I don't have to bring an extra battery pack for it because the batteries are like, an ounce maybe, so I carry 5 batteries with me, and I got, more footage time than I'll ever need in the field, and it's
Right.
stick them in a little, uh, Ziploc bag at the end of the day, right? You don't have to carry any
Yeah.
special case or anything like that. So yeah, it becomes crazy and easy. It's super
Yeah.
easy, it's a lot of fun. And then, for a guy like me, crop all the footage together really quick, toss it on YouTube for memory's sake. But guys
Yeah.
like you maybe that have a bigger production level stuff, you can work it right in or do a whole full blown production with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those are, I think that's the beauty of it, right? It is what you want it to be, right? If you just want to capture it and you want to be able to go back and watch it yourself, or I know guys use it, especially video, a lot of times is super helpful to go back and replay, like where did that arrow land? What
Yeah.
happened, right? I know for us, we had it on a rifle hunt 2 years ago. We shot a really good deer. I had it on film, and we thought 100%. I've shown that video to so many people, and they're like, "Oh, that's a dead deer," and we never found that deer. I have no idea how in the world that deer did not go down. I mean, the footage is just like amazing, but it's another thing of being able to utilize it for higher purpose and stuff like that, all the way up, like you said, to like full scale production if you want, right?
Hey guys, a quick segue away from the podcast. Just thanking you for watching today's podcast. We hope that you're enjoying listening to everything that Tactacam offers to us as outdoorsmen to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. Aaron has been really eye-opening. I know for me personally, listening to all the things that he has done, utilizing their product line, it's really opened my eyes. Go to Tactacam.com, take a look at everything that they offer and how it might improve your efficiency and effectiveness out in the field. If you're looking for other things, go to hunthikeharvest.com. We have a ton of things that we not only offer to you to save you money, but hopefully improve your performance out in the field, whether that's in training or actually getting out and putting boots on the ground. From our apparel partners like Numa, we have an exclusive discount there. Take advantage of that. It's going to save you a ton of money on some of the gear that we not only use, but trust, 100% lifetime guarantee. To some of our other things like Protect with our nutritional products, things that are going to help us improve how we operate, recover, sleep, all of those types of things. Absolutely huge value in that. If you're looking for other stuff, we've got our cardio moods as well as some of our things like freeze sleeve and a few other items. Take advantage of those because we want to provide as much value back to you as we possibly can. We really hope that you'll like and subscribe to our page. We greatly value your opinion. If you have comments, leave them down in the comments section. Have questions, shoot those to us. We always love to interact with you as much as we possibly can. We appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again for tuning in. Now let's get back to today's podcast.
So that's super cool. Well, let's switch gears and let's get into the reveal. I know you guys have everything from the XB all the way up to the X Pro and the SK and all these other things. Let's talk a little bit about the reveal line, which is maybe the lowest end all the way up to the Cadillac kind of style, and then how you guys have really started to take over that space based on, as you said, the technology, the app, the software, and all those things. It's remarkable, and I want really make sure that folks understand, like, what are they getting into, and we always talk about separators. What separates you from everybody else in the pack as far as like what you guys are doing on that side of the fence?
Yeah, man, for sure. So, they kind of started at the beginning, I guess. Reveal started as an experiment. Like I told you before, I mean, I wish I had a cam or a video camera on it at that time to have the CEO say, dude, like, we'll never build a trail camera.
That is funny you said that.
Yeah. And then again, hit the fast forward button on the TV, and all of a sudden he's saying, hey, by the way, we got a cellular camera coming out here in a few months. So, but yeah, the reveal started as an experiment. It was, a product. The guys that own the company, they're all diehard deer hunters out of the Midwest. They've used every camera you can ever imagine in the field. And at the end of the day, it was a product of them being users of cellular cameras and not being happy with this brand for one reason, and not being happy with this situation here, and not being happy with that, and saying, hey, like, okay, guys, like, enough's enough. Do we want to get into this space? And if we do, like, what's our goal? What check boxes do we need to hit to make this a success? And
Right.
Can we do it? And so they whiteboarded it out like we do everything, I feel like. And they had like 2 or 3 goals, and they said, okay, let's try it out. And they built a handful to see what would happen. And they tested them personally. They liked them. So they built like a tiny production run. I want to say it was in the ballpark of like 600 cameras or something like that. And let the customers hit with it, and the customer response was phenomenal. And then they said, okay, let's try a little bit bigger. So they went a little bigger. Dealers heard about them. sold out overnight, and then we hit the COVID timeframe. So it was just kind of the perfect storm to launch something new, right? And like you couldn't get anything, and we were out of inventory. It felt like every other month, and but a good thing because we were selling out, and it could just kind of
Right.
grew from there. And so really, their goal was to build an affordable blue collar price point camera that was simple to use, just true to our Tactacam. Hit one button, and that's all you got to think about for filming platform. We need this thing to be simple, that every user out there can learn how to use it easy enough and get it in the field, and that the camera just needs to flat out work. Like that's as simple as that sounds. That was the 3 check boxes that one way to perform were being met in the space. And
reliability.
Yeah, exactly. Have a camera that's reliable. And then, once you get a camera that's reliable, the hardest part is keeping up with the fact that we launched kind of the first camera that checked all 3 boxes off and did it well. And then you get a consumer response to that. And you're getting a lot of people that for the first time ever, they were using cellular trail cameras, never thought about it before, but now their buddies telling them how awesome it is. And they're showing them the app and the pictures to their phone, and all these light bulbs are going off when you get a new user to anything, right? There's a huge, even as simple as you can make it, there's a learning curve there. And so you have to build a customer service team that flat out responds to everything that they can do and handle customer stuff the right way, which was another factor that was lacking in that space, with a lot of companies. And so basically the most important thing at Tactacam, once we kind of hit that second production run, was like, hey, we've got to build the customer service team that like lights out stands behind this thing, because we're getting every question under the sun because our product works and it's reliable, and we're getting new customers to that space. So how can we make sure that we're doing our part to stand behind it? And so and really that's where a lot of our growth came from. We went from a company of roughly 50-ish employees before reveal to, I think we just broke 500 just last month, or like a month or two ago. So it's just been explosive, and like 100 over 100 of those employees are all customer service. They're all US based. They have, basically 24/7 nearly. You can get a hold of somebody at Tactacam. And it's just been lights out. And so, we take the Genesis camera, which was just reveal, and we just, expanded on that. So once you get a ton of customers using it, let's listen to our customers. What else do they want to see with this? What things can we do better with the app? What can we do better from a camera perspective, while not getting away from the reliability aspect and making sure that the cameras will work? And that's where we launched the Reveal X line. And so it became more there about like overbuilding our products, like we've always done, again, with the POV side. We never wanted to be the next iPhone or the next GoPro that like every year you're seeing advertisements in October about a brand new thing that's coming down the pipe when you just bought your camera or phone in September, right? Like we never wanted to do that.
Oh yeah.
So we always build stuff intentionally to do more than what it can do now, so that way we can trickle release, software features or firmware upgrades or app updates and things like that, to where the longevity and lifespan of our products also meets a need of our customers. A guy wants their product to sit on a tree, and if you want a camera that's going to sit out in a tree and last you for 3 years, Reveals that camera for you, and you're not going to have to worry about it getting, bombed by a new software update that this one can't handle that the new ones need.
Right.
So that's a very intentional thing that we do as well. And I'm true to it. The very first demo model Reveal that I've got of the original launch is still sitting out there taking pictures for me today, 4 years later. So it's that's been special. The X kind of marked like our branding effort on it. So like kind of became our thing, is the X model there. And then we started expanding in the product line. Okay, so now we're going to have different feature benefits. It's not just a cellular camera. It's the blackout feature was really important, for instance, for our customers. Me being a Western sales guy at the time, I don't know how many bear hunters just swear that you need a blackout camera because that infrared will attract a bear to a camera at night and things like that. So blackout kind of became the first, like a blackout no glow flash became kind of the first distinguishing factor.
Yeah.
From there, that's always kind of been that little bit of a separation between our entry level, quote unquote, and our bee's knees model. And then now we're gearing up to consolidate it down. So like you said, we've had several different models, and all of them, being a newer company, kind of testing the market to see what guys will do with different things that we offer. The SK had the built-in solar panel, which is really cool. The Pro model actually came from kind of a merger of the XB, which is our X with the blackout flash model. We launched the X Pro to put the screen back into the camera, because when we moved from camera A to the X series, we took the screen out intentionally, because we took the investment it takes to put a screen into a camera and said, hey, let's beef this up instead, because this will make this camera that much cooler and have this much more benefit.
Right.
And the cameras have built-in Wi-Fi in them as well, so you can connect everything in the field to your phone, and you got your live viewer there to aim the camera right, set all your settings, and walk away. You don't even need the screen to do any setup or anything. But the consumers, you got to listen to what your consumers are saying. There's enough of them saying, "Hey, where's the screen, man? We love that, and what are you guys doing making a cheaper camera with, no screen, whatever." So we put it back in for the guys that do want it. But at the end of the day, it's there for the customers that want that internal screen experience versus ones that don't. But yeah, so really the separation is your blackout flash. The X Pro now has a built-in GPS in it as well, which is really handy. There's a mapping feature in the app, so you can actually like live view where all your cameras are. Kind of some of the projects I work on in the conservation space and education space now. That's a huge feature for, if you're going to send a grad student out on a research project and say, "Hey, we've got 15 reveals out in the field. I think they're here, 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 and here." Well, they can now have the app open and like GPS locate everything and move cameras as needed and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
it's been a whirlwind, and I feel like I just totally vomited like 4 years worth of reveal, but it's been that fast of a game, man. It was like, hey, we launched it, and then now we're here and we're 500 employees deep, and it's just it's exponentially blown up our company. It's been amazing, and we've got no intention of stopping here. And like I said, we've got more new stuff coming down the pipe that, from app things to new product categories, like all these different things that it's like, holy cow, man, every year I feel like we're just getting started. And, as far as we are in this space, we're kind of in that same boat.
Yeah. Well, and I think the cool thing about it is, as you said, is when you're dealing with being in a position of like technology and software and all these other things, like just like with everything else, right? It's driving what's, how the market is going to change. And at the same time, it also is creating a broader spectrum of like, what else could these, technologies, these software pieces and everything else, the hardware itself, which is the, the physical piece that you hold and all that, is like that, yes, is a critical part to it, but it doesn't do anything without everything behind the scenes of the way it operates, what it creates in terms of functionality. How does it make your life easier? What is the quick and simple take home message of what that piece is going to do to improve my success, functionality, whatever that looks like, right? And so even if you go to the Tactacam website, we'll make sure that the links and all that stuff are associated with this podcast, is you could get really quickly outside of just the outdoor, the hunting space with it. And you guys have started to recognize that stuff too. Everything from simple things like surveillance, right? Hey, I've got a cabin somewhere. I've got, outbuildings on my property, those types of things. Like we always have so many things with where we want to try and like keep tabs on stuff, right? Or I want to be able to check on things. And when we think about time as being our most precious commodity, yeah, it's great if I can utilize the cams out in some of my areas that I'm scouting, hunting, and whatever else, because now I don't have to go out there and back, and I've got hours of time committed to those things, and it helps me with those things. But, talk a little bit about some of that. You mentioned the conservation piece, right? Like, I know you guys have some stuff that works into the boating space and fishing space, and there's a ton of other ways with which you can utilize what Tactacam does outside of just trying to find your next, trophy buck or bull or whatever else. I think it's important people know that there's a lot more uses outside as well that are really potentially beneficial to folks.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, you really start thinking outside the box of hunting in the surveillance space. And that space might seem simple. It's like, okay, security camera, I get it. I can monitor XYZ and it's going to send me pictures to my phone if it gets messed with. That's just a part of the equation. But then you get out in like the conservation space. I'll use Pheasants Forever for an example. They've got a Teton property up in Montana that they acquired from a landowner, turned it into black management. And I've been hunting on that piece more than, it's a super cool piece of property. But when we launched Reveal, I stuck my cameras out there, got permission from the regional director to throw them out there during the off season, do some, like, just basically have a place to test the cameras. And while I was out there, they had another brand of just the standard SD card cameras. And so we started talking about, hey, like these ones are really cool, that you can't drop off that bluff into that property and have any cell signal at all, but our cameras still have enough signal to send you photos and stuff from the property. And so you start talking about their biologist, or talking to their biologists at one of the local banquets that I was at, and they send biologists out to these different properties all throughout the state of Montana, which isn't a small state, and they've got like 3 people to cover it. They're burning tons of miles, tons of gas, tons of wear and tear on vehicles. They're, we have got solar packs and lithium ion battery kits now as well. So the power management piece is huge. You're not burning and turning double A's every time. And just the cost savings and efficiency that you can add into something as simple as, hey, we got this property, we cleaned it up, we've done these habitat improvements. Let's see what like the impact is. How many hunters are hitting the property? How much new wildlife is in there? Did a turkey release project on there, and 2 years later, I'm getting turkey videos on camera with the birds coming through, and it's still living up there on that property. And being able to showcase that without having to send a physical person out there, conservation space is huge. We're right now in the works with Mule Deer Foundation, they're doing a lot of one-way gate projects for highways. And we're getting ready to start gearing up and partnering with them to help monitor and showcase that use case. And at the end of the day, you throw a camera like that on there for a project that, hey, we think this will work really well for this reason, but let's see how the animals react to it, or how any situation, right? You kind of get that real in the field research without having to go physically monitor it, or spend a lot of time delayed with monitoring. You can make field adjustments faster when the information's coming directly to you. But yeah, then you get, like, we've got police forces now that call us, a bunch of municipalities use them for all kinds of security things. They're having vandalism issues. Cops can get a real-time photo immediately and say, hey, that guy's there now, let's go and get it figured out. We work with the USDA a lot now with different wildlife nuisance trappers or wildlife research trappers, things like that.
Yeah.
You talk about trap lines, the government case is one thing, but just, the average Joe, you run in a trap line. Most states have a 24-hour requirement to go check that trap. Well, when you can set your camera to do a check-in photo every 12 hours, you've got your real-time proof that there's no animal or there is an animal in that trap. And I can save my day by not having to go to these 3 traps because they're empty. I'm going to go over here to the one that is, and then now take that to the business use case again. Pest control, same thing. A lot of those guys, they need that live monitoring, or they're sending out a rep, every day on that circuit of all the traps they've set to, trap a raccoon in someone's attic or whatever they're doing. Throw a camera on it. You can monitor that in real time and save that company a ton of money and save that person a lot of time to tackle the jobs that need something done, and leave the ones alone that don't.
Yeah. And I think about other practical applications. Like, I grew up in Nebraska, right? And so I have so many friends, like my brother included. My brother lives on a 3,000 acre ranch up in the Sandhills of Nebraska, and they're grazing cattle and things like that in the summer. And the amount of miles that you put on a vehicle to go out and be checking on cattle, you get into calving season, for example, like those types of things from a livestock perspective, like the capabilities of some of those things in terms of saving time, like as you said, resources, fuel, wear and tear on vehicles, all these other things that provide you with so much better convenience and efficiency, where, I've for years been in and around friends and family and stuff like that, you get to this time of year where it's like calves are starting to hit the ground and those types of things. And it's like being an on-call doctor. Like whenever it's time, guess what? Like we got to go. It doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m. It doesn't matter if it's 11 p.m, whatever. It's like, guess what? Like that's your livelihood. And that means that when it's go time, it's go time. And those types of situations, scenarios allow you to potentially be a heck of a lot more efficient, to be a lot more capable of acting or reacting efficiently that, you just didn't have before. And I think that that's a huge part of it. I think the next thing for me is, I know it's a big one and you guys have done a ton in terms of kind of addressing this, which is making sure that you have service, right? And the service part of it is a big one, right? Like we go into a lot of areas where it's like, there is no cell service. I can't get signal, all these types of things. Talk a little bit about how you guys have maximized the ability from that perspective, because I know that this is a big one. It's like, oh, well, if I put something here and I don't have any Wi-Fi, cell service, signal, all these types of things, it's something that I don't understand very well. I'm sure you probably have a lot more clarity to be able to kind of clear the muddy water a little bit. Talk about the capabilities of what you guys have done with that, and how, you know, it makes such a difference to be able to add that next layer, because the 1.0 versions of so many cams and things like that was like you said, I mean, I got to put 46 batteries in this thing with no service, right? And hopefully it'll run for a couple months for me.
Yep.
And then I got to go back out and grab that thing. Like, talk about that, because that's a big component of, like you said, of how you guys have kind of like up the game to be able to, you know, create so much more efficiency and effectiveness of the way the Reveal series runs.
Yeah, man, for sure. And that's the key, is reliability. So you can't toss anything out there and expect it to be different than somebody else if you're not going to make it more reliable. And part of that, you know, if it's a cellular camera, people want to toss it out there, put it on a tree, and have it start sending pictures back to their phone. If it doesn't do that, you kind of fail. So, you know, part of it is working with the different carriers that you have. So the major carriers in the U.S. are AT&T and Verizon. And so with our first models, it was you know, choose your SIM card. Basically, you had to buy the model in the box. Like, you either bought an AT&T model or a Verizon model. And then, you know, extrapolating on that, it's like, how do we fix the issue of a guy that, you know, maybe he's got one location that AT&T picks up really well, or, you know, a third party carrier. Most of those, AT&T will cover a lot of your third party around the U.S. Carriers. So if you got like some small niche thing in Kansas, it'll probably run off an AT&T if it's not Verizon. But anyway, doing the dual SIM card thing. So we started including the SIM cards in the box for the customer to pick and choose, and you can swap them if you need to when you go to a different location. And then now we're in the space of, you got a single SIM card. So the SIM card is good for either option. You throw one SIM card in, you tell the camera what you want it to lock into, and it'll go that route, which is huge. And then really, you know, at the end of the day, it's like the reception strength and the style of the antenna really makes a big difference too, of like how much it'll pick up. Because you can take a lot of different cameras out there. You might have it on one side of a tree and it's telling you it's got no signal, but if you take it and move it, you know, 90 degrees around the tree trunk, all of a sudden it's got 4 bars, and they can make that much of a difference if the hardware is not right. And so, you know, we've always aimed to make sure our cameras didn't have that kind of issue with them. So they're more omnidirectional, which is nice. And then we started building extended range antennas. So you do get some spots where, that Teton property is a great example. It'll get 1 bar of service down in the bottom, and 1 bar is all you need on a Reveal to make sure it'll send you photos to your phone. Well, when I go to download an HD video, because I got a moose and her calf that come through, and I'm like, oh, I got to send this to Dee Dee so she can share it on the Pheasants Forever page, the video doesn't come through. And that's because there's just not enough bandwidth for that tower to stay connected long enough to the camera to send that level of file through. And so I threw one of our extended range antennas on there, boosted it up to 4 bars, no problem, sends the photos. So that's another thing that we do as well. If you are in a situation where usually it isn't a place you're going to find hard signal for the photo ability, but the bigger the file that comes through and is getting transmitted, just like a text message, the more bandwidth and tower time it takes to stay connected. You can make that a lot more reliable with our extended range antenna. So it's about like a 12 or 13-inch antenna, and then it's got a 7 or 8 foot cord on there, I think is the length on that. But you can really like run it up a lot higher if you get a guy that's like, man, I just don't have the signal down in my ravine in Illinois on this deer stand that I've got, but he can run that
Right.
and up a tree and get it to send. Where you know, some of your other companies have done the like the link system where you can have one camera talk to the next camera, and then the last camera in line sends. That system runs into reliability issues for the exact same reason. Like, you have it on the wrong side of a tree, it's not going to talk to the next camera up, or whatever the case is. You might have those situations too. So being able to take the single camera and say, hey, like this one needs to send 99.9% of the time is really what we build it around. You need to get the tech wizards in here to go beyond that explanation, but it is amazing like how much goes into that. But giving you the reliable accessory to boost your signal if you need it, we have that. And I haven't ran into a situation yet where I put a camera out, and again, remote Montana, Little Belt Mountains, put it in the high woods. I've had some in just remote coulees and things, and I haven't found a situation yet that I can't get at least the 1 bar where my phone is like useless except for, you know, off-grid OnX or whatever you're using. So
Right. Yeah. And like I said, I think that's a big one, right? We've become really, I don't know how to frame that properly, but it's like, we're big babies when it comes to having all these things where it's like, you know, you get out and you're like, You got how many bars you got? How many bars, and you're like, everyone, and all of a sudden it's like, mine will go to where you're in a position where it just says like SOS on it or whatever, where your service signal's at, and you're like, oh no, right? Everybody like freaks out, like, what am I gonna do now? Right? It's like, don't think back to the fact where it's like, I didn't own a cell phone because I didn't exist really for the average Joe person until I was in college, and like, holy crap! Right now, you got like parents buying like 6-year-olds like brand new iPhones that it costs like $1,500, right? And you're like, what in
Yeah.
the world, right? Like,
Well, and to that point, man, that's I talked about customer service earlier, and that's the thing. You get a guy that's never used it, and he's hearing all these rant and rave reviews of, hey, man, this camera just flat out works. Stick it anywhere, use it. The first time, I promise you, the first time he sticks that camera out there in the woods, and for some reason it doesn't send him a photo, like we get the phone call about it. So you
right,
got to build something that's reliable to make sure that, number one, you're mitigating as many of those phone calls as you can, but also if it is something. And it may sound funny, but like most of the time, or a lot of times, we'll have customer service reps being like, "This is going to sound stupid, but did you turn the camera from setup mode to on? Like that? Did you walk away and they go back out there? No, I didn't. Damn it! Turn it on. We'd rather have a million phone calls where we can walk that customer through the troubleshooting process than 100 phone calls that guys are like, "Hey, your camera just flat out doesn't work, and we got to take it back." Right? So, 97 some odd % customer satisfaction rating with that doesn't lie about it. So we are building a reliable camera, and that's the core of what we do. And I didn't answer a question you asked earlier. What makes Tactacam different in that space compared to a lot of other companies, or what's the standout factor? I said this on another podcast, and I think it rings true, is you're never going to see Tactacam launch a product that isn't ready to work and ready to go. And they're not going to stick a feature in there just because it's flashy and it's the next best thing, even though it doesn't work. Like, kind of like the 5G example, right? Like there's a lot, it's a slow adoption phase, but it's because the technology is not really there yet, even though all these companies want us to talk about it and stamp their name on it. And not necessarily in the cellular camera space, but like a lot of the AI features. That's a hot topic in the trail. Oh, our camera can tell you if it's a raccoon, if it's a buck, if it's a doe, if it's that. If that was the case, every single camera on the market would absolutely have that technology. But the reality is the technology doesn't work that great. And so you're not going to see Tactacam shove that into a camera just to say we have it. Right. And that's really, and being around the brand, this is my 8th year at the company. Every single thing we've ever launched has been that way. You're not going to see it hit that market until it's like ready to go. You're not going to stamp their name on something that doesn't work either, which is a huge thing. And I'm not saying other companies necessarily have that in mind. They're going to do that, but you launch something too early, it can fail on you, or just putting something new out for the sake of putting something new out isn't always the best thing. So when you get something from Tactacam, you can just have confidence in the fact that it's been tried, it's been tested, it's been at a point where it's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part, right? Is there's always this race to get to the next best thing, right? And that can be great, but if you do all that and put all the resources and obviously funding towards those things and you do it wrong, it's going to cost you more on the other end of it if you hurried and got there and didn't do it right. And I always tell people, I don't know, however that saying goes, right? It's like, it's a heck of a lot easier to do it right than to do it over.
Right.
And exactly. It makes a lot of sense. And so, it's good to hear from that perspective, because as you mentioned, right, if you have to hire an entire team of people to field calls all day long about how you screwed it up, like, holy cow, right? You're wasting so much time, so much money. And you're also going to have a lot of people that probably don't want to work for you because they're gonna be like, all I do is just eat freaking crap sandwiches all day. Like, I'm not about that game, right? Like,
exactly
people won't be happy, right? So, that's awesome. I think staying kind of on that piece too is, I think a lot of people's early reaction to, oh, like this is a cellular based, you're talking about Verizon, AT&T and all those other things, like, oh, sweet. So I spent this money, like, now how much I got to buy a whole new cell service? Like, I think it's important people understand, like, what does that look like from a cost perspective? I know those things are on your website. We're going to encourage people obviously to go there, but just touch on that real quick, because I think it's surprising, because I think the immediate, like, perception or maybe people's immediate reaction as like, sweet, now what else do I got to pay for? Right.
Yeah, great point, man. Absolutely. And you're exactly right. What's the cost of the hardware is one piece, and the cost of the service, which is what you're ultimately, when you buy a cellular trail camera, you're buying the convenience that camera is going to tell you what's out in the field when you're not there to check it yourself, and save you all the time and back end energy and resources that you don't have to put in to go check a previous style trail camera. But with that is the cell plan cost. So they do have a subscription service for these. You can start as little as $5 a month, and that's going to get you 250 photos per camera. So it's $5 per camera, and then you get 250 photos on that plan. That's our starter plan. The intermediate is $8 a month. That one gets you up to 500 photos per camera, and then you've got $13 or $12 a month. You get a discount if you had multiple cameras on that one for the Pro, which is unlimited. If you're a guy like me, I'm a great example. I work for the company and I run the starter plan because I've got 5 cameras out there in the field. I might get 10 photos a day on one camera and nothing on 5, for a week or whatever. It's just kind of so sporadic that I don't need a huge data plan. But if you're an outfitter in South Texas and you're burning through 300 pounds of bait per feeder per week, you're going to want that unlimited, because you're going to be paying for any overage charges or things like that, just like you would with the original days of, I know we kind of touched on the early days of cell phones, but like they used to be, you get 50 text messages or 25 cents a text message or however that would work. You bought your minutes, right? So it's kind of the same concept. Then we have HD downloads as well. So again, one of the transmission reliability factors is, a lot of people are going to, in the cellular camera space, they're going to talk about doing, how high quality is, or what's the resolution of the photo that gets sent to your phone? Is it stellar? Is it grainy? Is it whatever? There's a happy medium, making sure that your camera sends as many photos reliably as it possibly can. And it's not always going to be the highest resolution, because again, that's all bandwidth and tower connection time, which eats batteries and all these other considerations. But with that, we do have the option to do an HD download plan as well. So it's either $5 for 50 of those if you want to do it that way, or if you're a guy or an outfitter or a land manager or a land realty company that's going to be using these for advertising and you're going to use a ton of them, just pay $9 a month for your entire plan, and that covers unlimited HD downloads. So I've got a starter plan for me personally. I don't get a ton of photos on my cameras, but I do pay the $9 a month for the unlimited HD downloads, because I burn and turn a bunch of those. So that's the cost to play. And then, on the outfitter side of things, we do have an outfitter and land management program that covers your realty companies and stuff. And those guys have a business to business partnership level data plan that we put together kind of for their unique use case as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I think I always try to conceptualize or contextualize that as I'm like, that's like 2 of your Starbucks coffees a month. And it's funny how I'm not a Starbucks guy, whatever, obviously that sounds, but at the end of the day, it's so easy to think about that. Like, how many things do you spend $5 on here, $5 on there, right? Like, even from the perspective of thinking of all the stuff we've talked about today, right? How much would it cost you in gas to have to go out and back, right? It's going to be a heck of a lot more than that. Right. And so it's funny how we find these kind of perceptions on things. Are like, oh, that's ridiculous. And then you go, yeah, but let's think about it in this kind of perspective. And you go, oh, well, yeah, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Then look at the cost of gas. Look at, all these other things. Look at how much is time of value to you. Right. And so that's awesome, because I think that when I saw kind of as I've gone through and really kind of, as I told you, tried to comb through everything I could as far as the site goes, is just, what don't I know, right? Because I'm what I would consider to be the casual kind of guy when it comes to a lot of these things, where even as we've talked and as our conversation has grown online as well as offline, is I'm thinking to myself, man, I couldn't be more of a perfect customer, based on the fact that I've flown 25,000 miles and it's not even April yet, just this year. I've had, from the first week of December, I've had 1 weekend off where I wasn't on the road or had work commitments. And then, we're talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm like, guess what? Monday through Friday, I'm working and doing things that, my regular position. I'm like, how great would my life be when I had my first weekend off if I could have went out and put, couple, 2, 3 cams up that now as I go back in the next however many weeks, I'm going to be back on the road again. Can I be
Yeah.
utilizing my time better, my resources better? Because in the back of my head, I'm always like, man, I need to get out in the field. I need to be scouting. I need to be, checking things out. We're trying to explore new ground, all these other things. And I'm like, you're making me almost feel like, man, I'm an idiot. Like I gotta, this should be like what my game plan is like, it's right in front of my face, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because as I said, I don't have the time. I'd love to be the guy who's like, yeah, our partners with Numa, they have their pursuit team or whatever. And it's like, those are people that are out in the field like over 200 days a year. And I'm like, damn, that sounds awesome. And I'm like, that's not possible. How the hell am I going to do that? Like, I'd love that to be
Yeah.
the case, but it's not reality for me.
No, well, it's like the industry thing. Like everybody, before you get your foot in the door in the industry, everybody's kind of like, you have that dream outside looking in, right? And it's like one of the sales guys from way back in the day, Scott. He said it best. He's like, I joined the outdoors industry because I love to hunt. I've never had time to hunt less. Like,
That's fun.
you're
That's just it, right? It's kind of
before,
like a lot of people think of that too with like the guiding. We're like, oh man, being a guide was really cool, right? And then like I know guys that guide, and you're like, you realize like you get up at like 4 a.m. for months on end, right?
yeah,
To go take other people to shoot trophies, and you do all the hard work and all the, do everything to get them. Like there's people that love it. And like, I would love to do some of it, but I'm like, I wouldn't want to do that for a living. It sounds cool and it looks cool, right? But I don't
yeah.
think I want to do that every day.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, it was it's like I was a park ranger before I worked for Tactacam, and it's the same thing. You're working when other people are playing, so it's just
Yep.
everything's got its ups and downs and perks and everything. But yeah, it's definitely it's a busy industry, and when you got a successful product and brand or whatever else, it's just that much more. So it's
Yeah.
you try to get out when you can. And in Tactacam school, they um, gosh, I think our like original benefits package, like they gave you like a week of extra vacation off, but you had to be hunting was like the thing.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and now it's like, well, and to the fact, I mean, there's not a lot of places you can go. Montana was a little different. I had to definitely mind my time hunting there if you had to be on call for something or like,
Right.
didn't know if you're going to get a phone call about something, you can kind of limit where you're going to hunt. But here in Maryland, like I could damn near take my laptop out in the tree with me and turn on my hotspot and just literally just work in a tree stand and hunt if I wanted to. So
It's awesome. I love it. Well, I know we talked about the expo coming up. I know you guys are going to be there. A lot of easy ways for people to find you guys. I know you guys have a YouTube channel. You have an awesome YouTube channel. There's a ton of information on there, videos that you guys share, and what's new and what's going on, as well as a host of other things. We'll provide all the connectivity for that. Anything we didn't touch on that you want our listeners and followers to know, because I want to make sure that we didn't skip over anything.
yeah, man, I think we pretty well covered it. Like I said, Tactacam's been on a heck of a journey, and it's a huge thanks to our customers for taking us along for the ride. But it's been you started with the POV stuff, and those things are still out there today. Don't get discouraged because they're not on Tactacam.com. Like I said, you can get those anywhere. If you're looking for a setup, don't hesitate to give us a call and maybe walk through what you want. Again, it's been 5 years of my life that I love. That's my passion project, is the point of view cameras. So
Yeah,
and
they're
trail
awesome.
cameras, there's more information about trail cameras that I don't know, and I work for the company, so it's one of those never ending rabbit holes when you get into it. But it's
Right.
I think we did a pretty good job covering that too. And Reveal, you can find it everywhere. Tactacam.com. We consolidated our website into one now, so it's just Tactacam.com, which is nice. All the information you could want on there, like you said, the YouTube channel. But yeah, and don't ever hesitate to call the company either. We've got people on standby darn near 24/7 that you can get a hold of somebody and ask the questions you need answers to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll make sure we provide all of the connectivity, where to find you guys, as you mentioned. I mean, even in my kind of some searches and trying to make sure that I fully understand, even more than our kind of conversations and things like that. it isn't hard to find. If you put a little Google search in there, you're going to find more places that Tactacam is available than you probably ever thought existed. And even just as we talked about beforehand, I mean, our bow kind of people, as far as like where we go shoot and who takes care of my bow and tunes it and all these other things, walk in right behind the desk, guess what, boom, there's all your POV stuff is there, your all the trail cams and all those things. I mean, they're pretty easy to get your hands on, and as you said, in this day and age, it's not tough to find multiple outlets of where you guys can get your hands on them. But well, it's been fun, man. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be in, how far are you from Baltimore?
Like 45 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to be in Baltimore in July. So maybe I'll hit you up when I'm out there. I'll be there for a couple days. I gotta present and do some things. So be cool if I get in your neighborhood to try and find a way to connect, but we will hopefully find lots of opportunities as we continue kind of down the road. You guys make sure that you go out, check out everything that Aaron has kind of shared with us today. They've got anything you could possibly need to fit you guys kind of wants and desires as far as capturing things and broaden the scope too. There's a lot of other ways that you guys are hitting different spaces, which I think is super cool. And it just makes sense from a company perspective, but as well as just from our daily life perspective of how much we just want to keep tabs on things, right? If we got properties, if we got, valuables, if we got things that we need to do a better job on and at the same time document or whatever, all the way up to the cool and fun stuff we talked about today, you guys got the answer. So I'm excited to see what's new. I appreciate your time, man. And we'll look forward to continuing to follow along and get myself up to speed. That's what we need. I need to get my act together because I now seem like I've got a pretty clear path on where I should be headed with my efforts as well. So appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time, and we appreciate your time.